Hey guys, what's going on? Inception here, and welcome to another video. Ladies and gentlemen, today we have, it would have been a meta tier list, but you guys know how I work when it comes to using different types of cards. When it comes to the meta of the game, I want to try to just give you guys a good rundown of which cards I like the most, because in FIFA, guys, you really should use different types of cards constantly. It's really boring to see the same teams all the time, but obviously cards that are the most meta are going to be the most ideal to get, right? So the way that we're going to be doing this, guys, is we're actually going to be looking through FUTBA. And I was thinking of doing it for each individual league, but I might as well just do it in one video, even if it's like super long. I think it's going to make the most sense for people to do, just so that they can have a good idea of what cards are going to be like before they actually use them, right? So the way that we're going to do this is I'm going to go ahead and switch this to this monitor right here, and we're going to move this over here. Perfect, because this is going to be the main one, right? So we'll start off first with the Premier League. Now, guys, with the Premier League, they did a really good job with a lot of cards here and there, which is definitely very, very nice. Okay, so the Ruben Dias card, we did a review for Team of the Year version. This is definitely 100% the best version of Ruben Dias, because on the shadow chemistry style, he meets the minimum requirement of having that full meta pace. His defense is perfect. His physical is almost perfect. Jumping at an 85 while being 6'2" and a high and average body type, also good, but it's his reactions and composure being at a 99-96 that makes this card phenomenal. His agility and balance being lower doesn't really matter, because his pace is so high that it just works out really nicely for the meta of the game. Sorry, just trying to figure out the settings over here. Yeah, this card, absolutely brilliant. It's the best year that Ruben Dias has ever existed in FIFA. In previous years, he was like increased to a point where he was usable, but this year he's an absolute monster. Like I'd actually put him next to Varane, to be honest with you guys. I really would, as a more agile player, which is obviously very nice. But Varane has those crazy Demon animations. Juan Concello, obvious choice here too. Juan Concello is a super versatile player. You can pretty much play him anywhere. If you want to play him as a center back, you actually could. You could play him as a striker if you really wanted to. Cards like this that have stats in every single position is just incredible to work with, right? He's got the unique body type. His 6-foot height with that unique body type works really well. Dribbling is absolutely phenomenal. If you guys checked out my earlier videos for defenders, I always mentioned how Concello had this like sharp dribble to him, and I really feel like it may have to do with the CPU AI trait potentially, right? But that in combination with the body type that he has and all that good stuff works out brilliantly on this card on a technical dribbler. Like with this card, honestly, you can play him wherever you want, and he actually makes a really good center defensive mid, because of the fact that he's so fast on an anchor chemistry style, pushing forward and coming back. So the card's absolutely phenomenal as well. Virgil Van Dyke, very good card. The main problem with him is obviously going to be in pace. So let's just say, for instance, you want to use the 3-4-1-2. This is not going to be a super ideal card to use in that formation, because you need players that are agile, that move quickly across the pitch, and he's not going to be that guy. What Virgil van Dijk is that he's really good for like the park the bus meta, right? Because his defensive animations and his body type allows him to defend certain situations really well. It's just that obviously you have to work with this card a little bit because of the acceleration set up with the dribbling stats, right? So in the future, if they ever give him some sort of like special card, they do have to give him like a 92 for acceleration or a 93 for him to be really nice in the meta of the game and to be one of the better center backs in the game, because he already has the right base mechanics from the rare gold card defensively, right? He was a very hard card to pass. Body type is crazy because it's a unique while being 6'4". He just needs the pace boost, right? The pace boost is definitely going to be very important. So strays away from the meta of the game a little bit. Crazy expensive, but he has those animations. It's just the pace in certain situations that you're going to notice, right? Rafael Varane, we did his review as well. This card is a card that a very large majority of the player base is using. Varane you could totally use in the main center back position through the middle and the three at the back, but not as ideal in those side areas. He's still going to be pretty fast, but he's not going to be super agile, right? So I always compare it to this card, right? But there are two different types of cards depending on the tactics they're using, right? But Nicholas Koza, because his pace is set up at an 86-84, but he's 5'10" with an average body type, This card just feels more agile moving across the pitch. With Varane, because his dribbling stats is set up the way that it is with his pace, you do feel that on the card. However, he's one of the few cards in FIFA where you genuinely do not care about that because his defensive animations are absolutely insane. And in this game, guys, it is mainly defensive AI oriented to block out certain situations. And this card has those animations, right? If you look at his traits, he has the dives into tackles trait. Could be a big reason why he tackles the ball the way that he does. But like I said, absolute monster to use in the game as well. Fantastic card. The SBC price people looked at, they're like, oh, he's kind of expensive, hence the amount of dislikes. It's the price and the fact that a lot of people are going to have him in the team. Very, very hard card to pass, right? Especially if you're using that sort of tactic. Like I said, if you're using the 3 at the back in the side positions, not as ideal, right? Next up, we have is Andrew Robertson. Andrew Robertson is a card that they have formatted in a way where he will be good enough to use in the meta of the game, because if you look at this card on a shadow chemistry style, he actually looks really good. But because this card is someone that, gives him those Liverpool links, he has the dribbling stats, he has the passing stats, it works out really well. But again, it's because of that unique body type that makes this card work out really well. He has the early crosser trait, which can be helpful in certain situations, and just a very solid card. I wouldn't necessarily say that he's like crazy meta, but for the left backs that currently exist in the Premier League, there's not like a whole lot to work with, right? Because important things for players that play in the left back position, especially if you're using like a 3 at the back and you want to actually use him as your left center back, which you totally could, it's the body type, it's the physical, right? You'll notice the strength being low, but you'll notice the aggression overcompensating the strength. Because the aggression, people were asking in the Mateus review, like, oh, how does my Mateus outbody this and that when his strength in this? It's because the pace with the body type, with the height, it works with the aggression, right? So Andrew Robertson, very good card. You don't actually see him that often in teams because, like I said, not like a crazy meta card, right? Rudiger, we actually did not do a review for this card, but I'll tell you guys something right now. This card is an absolute demon, okay? Like I'm telling you, he is a beast. Like I cannot even explain to you how hard it is to pass this guy. Now, again, 3 at the back formation, you could totally use him as a left center back, right center back if you really want to, but more ideal through the middle. This card on a shadow chemistry style, because they have boosted his pace to be at the meta of the game with the mid 90s and higher, right? His dribbling stats working really, really well with that 6'3" height, high and average plus body type. It's phenomenal. But then not only that, he has the medium high work rate too. So this card, if you guys ended up packing him or whatever, he is absolutely monstrous, okay? One of the best center backs I've used in the game, to be honest with you. Trent Alexander-Arnold. This card's 117k, and I'll tell you guys this right now. This guy is very solid defensively. Very, very, very solid defensively. It's actually funny because I always mentioned, like in the past, how I like the base mechanics of Concello over Trent. But Trent, once he got to this version of the card, he became very, very good. I just knew that Concello had that potential, right? Like once he had that Team of the Year card, I was like, oh my God, this card's crazy. But this card's in a very similar boat because why? Guys, again, unique body type. He has a 4-star weak foot. This card on a shadow chemistry style, he actually understands the defensive areas really, really well on the pitch. Like I've actually used this card a few times for my review account. And when I have to defend that right back situation, again, he does an absolutely phenomenal job. Guys, this year with shooting being low for certain fullbacks, I really don't care that much. I need players that can, defend as well as possible. A card like Trent, I wouldn't put him in the team to be able to use as a right mid. So let's just say, for instance, if I was going to use Hakimi in the team, right? I have the OTW version, right? With the OTW version, he has some basic shooting mechanics that works out really well for that 3 at the back to play him in that right mid position that essentially acts like a fullback that can attack, right? But this card on an anchor, with the defense, the physical, and the pace, definitely very nice to work with. With Trent, he's more of that physical type of dude, that guy that's going to defend really well for you. So it's very nice to be able to rotate him into that right back position or center back position, depending on what you need. Because like I said, very, very good defensive card. What else do we have here? Konate is another one. So Konate we did the review for as well. Again, they have increased him to a point where he can be used in the meta of the game, but obviously he will lack in the acceleration, sprint speed, and dribbling departments, right? There's going to be moments in game where you feel like you're going to want that depending on the tactic that you're actually using. So again, if you play the 3 at the back formation, you have to mainly use him as your center back playing through the middle, because you want players that feel more agile in those side positions. For instance, I use Delane and Team of the Year Marquinhos there, and it works out really, really well. With Konate, they've improved to a point where he can be very good defensively, but you have to rely on his animations, his defense, to kind of block out situations for you as much as possible, right? So Shadow Chemistry style, definitely the most ideal thing to give him as usual, but you do have to work with dribbling and pace a little bit on the card. We have Chalobah. So I never actually tried out the center back card, but what I will say is I have tried out the CDM version of the card, and the CDM version of the card obviously has the dribbling stats, so all of that kind of makes a difference for how good the card can actually perform defensively. Never tried this card, but I can tell you this right now, that I could see him still being pretty decent in the game, but again, will be lacking in certain departments of the card in regards to pace and dribbling, right? Because he's a 6'3" player, high in average plus body type, with 64 agility, 68 for balance. So again, it's a card you have to rely on defensive animations to block out certain opportunities. It's a card that gives you the links in your team if you actually really want to work with that Chelsea setup. And then you just basically take it from there, right? So it's one of those cards you could definitely unlock if you wanted to, but I think that the CDM option was the better choice. Tanganga, I'll be honest with you, they did a pretty good job with this card. I don't think a lot of people would have actually completed him, but it really depends on how you were actually going to use him in your team, because the main thing about Tanganga's card is the fact that he has very good physical stats, right? Because the card is formatted a little bit strangely, right? If you give him an anchor, the 92 acceleration is a little bit annoying, but you obviously boost the physical of the card. A shadow chemistry style makes the most sense for him, because for me, for instance, you know, I got the left back variation. It just depends on what you want the most, because for me, when I was doing the review with Guillaume and stuff, I have the link to Sterling, right? So I only need that 4-4-2, 4-5-1 setup, and it's something really, really cool to work with. He's going to have 97 acceleration, 99 sprint speed, and his defense is going to be close to perfect as well. But not only that, guys, 5'11" height, average body type is really good to work with. Now, it isn't a personal preference of mine to use a card like this in the left back position or right back position. I actually love being able to rotate him into the center back area as well for that 3 at the back formation, because he can play as a center back, he can play as a fullback, but obviously the high work rates, it works brilliantly for that side center back position, right? That right center back, that left center back, depending on who you got. So the card was very solid for what it was. Like I said, I don't think a lot of people would have actually unlocked him, but I think for the links that he offered for your team, very, very solid card if you use him correctly. I still enjoy using him for what it is. Eric Bailly got an upgrade on the card, which is definitely very, very nice. A card like this, you do have to use in a more park the bus defensive way, not as agile, but with the upgrade on the card, guys, with some dribbling stats being increased here and there, this guy is going to be a good center back. Why? Because he has the dives into tackle traits, right? So there's going to be a lot of situations where, you know, if you're not relying on his agility and balance and that quickness about the card, he's going to just move across the pitch really nicely when he's played in a more defensive way. You don't want to push him out of position that often. You just kind of want him to be in the right position at the right time to block out those opportunities. Like I always tell you guys, I do feel like this trait right here makes an absolutely massive difference for how defenders perform in game. But the dribbling boost that they gave him, even though not like crazy significant, I think is going to be very, very nice for a card like this if you guys ended up keeping that card. Christensen, I actually tried out the Christensen card. Again, lacks for the meta of the game because of the fact that he has the pace set up the way that it is, the dribbling set up the way that it is. So on a shadow chemistry style, you do have to compensate for that a lot when actually using him in game. And it is this best variation of the card. So for people who are Chelsea fans, they're probably going to use him anyways. But yeah, it definitely doesn't touch the Team of the Year Rudiger card at all. Azpilicueta, I tried this card. This card is very underrated. I actually thoroughly enjoyed using him because this card, guys, again, on a shadow chemistry style, boosting the defense as much as possible. A medium work rate. So people look at that work rate and they're like, oh, they get turned off immediately by it, right? But for this card, it works out so well for him because He has crazy pace on a shadow. His defense, again, is as high as it could possibly be, right? But it's the 91 aggression, working with the dribbling stats, working with the 5'10" height, average body type, because as you guys know, average body type in FIFA for defenders is amazing. It's that and the unique body type, or it can be the high and average plus body types, but their dribbling just needs to be set up a certain way for that to work out really well for those guys. But Azpilicueta, definitely very underrated card. I tried him out on someone's account one time, and again, thoroughly enjoyed using him. Rhys James, again, has been improved to a point where he could be usable in the meta of the game. And what's nice about this card is that he actually has a stocky body type. So again, if you're using him in a more defensive way on the shadow chemistry style, it's a card that, again, gives you that one link to the Chelsea player. Let's just say, for instance, you're using Rhys James. Fantastic card. Obviously strays away from the meta of the game a little bit because he lacks in the shooting department. He lacks in the not much else, to be honest, because you know your main focus again with these defenders is to be able to defend as much as possible. So the stocky body type should work out really nicely with the 5'10" height on the shadow chemistry style. Next up was Luke Shaw. I did actually end up trying out Luke Shaw's card, and again, I actually liked the card too. On a shadow chemistry style, 95 acceleration, 99 for sprint speed. It's a card that gives you really good links for the Man United players. You could totally use him as a center back if you really want to, because again, 5'11" height, stocky body type is fantastic to work with, but it is a card that I mainly enjoyed using in the left back position when I was trying him out in that way. But cards like this, guys, being the left-footed player, right? Again, if you were to switch him into that 3 at the back formation as your left center back, that would work out beautifully for a card like this. I think the way that he would move across the pitch would be great in the defensive areas, because you don't really want to attack too much with a card like this. Let's see what else we have here. So we have Kyle Walker. Kyle Walker, another very, very good card. To be honest with you guys, you can use this card as a center back if you really want to. I'm not even joking. Shadow chemistry style, even on 7 chemistry, right? Because of the 6-foot height, high average, high body type with the unique, or the high work rates with the unique body type. Look at this card on just 7 chemistry, right? Putting him in that right back position, that center back position, you don't have to give him anything else. This card is going to be a defensive beast for you, because the way that the game works, it's very different this year. Like, obviously, it's preferable to use players like Concello way more, but with Kyle Walker, you know, the fact that you can give him 7 chemistry on a shadow chemistry and he still performs the way that he does is awesome. But on top of that, right, on 10 chemistry with an anchor chemistry style, this card is still very, very nice to use. Now, I will say that I enjoyed using him mainly as a fullback, physical presence wise, but a card that you could definitely use in that right center back position and would perform pretty well for you as well. Alex Telles, we actually tried out recently for, I think it was on Guillau's account, because I packed him for the Griezmann SBC, which is very fortunate because that Griezmann SBC was essentially 100k for him. With Telles, I like using Telles a lot. I wouldn't necessarily recommend him in the center back position as much as the fullback position. He definitely feels like someone to mainly use in that left back area, because he actually defends really nicely. He has this like decent physical feel to him, but you do notice you wanting a little bit more on him for sure when it comes to the physical. But I think this is an RTTF card, so these cards could actually be upgraded, which is, you know, very important, because if they put his acceleration and sprint speed to a point where it's at a, I would say at a 94 on an anchor chemistry style, you're going to have essentially perfect pace, but you're going to be boosting the physical and the defense by a lot while working with some pretty decent shooting capabilities, right? And very good dribbling stats, considering the fact that he has the unique body type. So currently, it's a card that I would mainly use in the left back position, but the card is still very, very nice to work with as well. Cheaper options, you could definitely go with Varane still. You could definitely go with a rare gold Juan Concello still, 100%. There's these options here too. Joe Gomez, this card right here, he is a weird card, but still performs okay. Again, the pace is set up weirdly with the dribbling stats that the card has. So 89 acceleration with 99 for sprint speed. Agility and balance is on the lower side, which kind of sucks. But if you're using him in a more defensive way, the card could still work out really nicely. But I do think that there can be better options than a card like this playing in that center back position. Because Joe Gomez, I would say he still needs a few upgrades here and there to really, really be a super nice card. Next up, we have Manquillo. This card is actually underrated a little bit, not like fully, because you can actually use him in the fullback position. Wouldn't recommend him as a center back at all. It's a card that gives you those links to those Spanish players, those Premier League players, but needs the shadow chemistry style. You definitely feel the lack of physical, especially for the meta of the game nowadays, and you'll obviously feel the lack of composure in certain situations too when he's putting pressure against people, right? But again, on the shadow chemistry style, having the acceleration to be higher than the sprint speed is very important to be able to defend as quickly. But I would say he's more on the generic side than he is on like the amazing side. But as a gameplay objective, you can't go wrong with that. Nelson Semedo, I actually tried out this card and I liked him a lot, and you can obviously see why I like him a lot. So obviously he's Portuguese, right? Blah, 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 blah. But this card, guys, on a shadow chemistry style performs well. You will notice, I will say, okay, you'll notice the strength from time to time because he is a person who is not like, like a Trent Alexander-Arnold. Trent Alexander-Arnold's unique body type is more built, whereas Nelson Semedo, he's kind of like thinner, if that makes any sense, right? So you do notice that from time to time, but what you really notice with a card like this is on the shadow chemistry style, the pace works really well with the 5'10" height, unique body type with the 91 aggression, right? So I use this card already. I liked him a lot. Do I prefer to have someone that is a high work rated player or a high medium work rated player? Sure, but I think people look at medium there and they get turned off by it immediately. He still defends really well, guys, because if you're using a high medium work rated player in your fullback position, you know a bunch of players that still perform really well on that high medium work rate. So again, a very nice card. I definitely tried him out the other day, and again, thoroughly enjoyed him. A lot of these cards I tried out just didn't end up actually doing the review for. Kieran Tierney, again, definitely a card that they have improved to be as nice as possible in the game. To be honest with you, I wouldn't mind using a card like this on an anchor chemistry style at all, because with the anchor chemistry style, you boosting the aggression and strength to work with that 5'10" height, average body type with 99 acceleration is very nice. A card that's 79k that gives you those Arsenal links, especially if you actually ended up doing the Aubameyang card for like a 4-3-2-1 setup or a 4-3-3 setup. You just need that one link to work with, right? Which again, I do think is very nice. The dribbling stats works really well with the body type and height. Again, people don't look at these cards and like, oh my goodness, full meta because of the fact that he's a three-star player. But guys, the high work rates, high stamina on the card, that's very important stuff to look at when it comes to using these types of defenders in the game. Soyunchu's card, if you want to use them for the links and stuff, cool. But with a card like this, again, if you're good enough at FIFA defending wise, he's still going to defend really well for you, right? On a shadow chemistry style, boosting pace, boosting the defense, this card is not bad because he has the 4-star weak foot with the high and average body type. But again, does stray away from the meta of the game a little bit. So it's a card that you're mostly going to use in a team if you're playing like a typical defensive setup where it's like a 4 at the back or whatever it is, while making sure that you get those Leicester City links with certain cards, right? Like, I don't know if you guys use the DACA card, but that is something that you can work with while potentially using like a Ricardo Pereira or something, which I don't see that often. I wish I did, but I get it because for the meta of the game, the pace is going to be on the lower side to block out those lob passes and through balls. Malang Sarr, we did a review for as well. Actually a very good defender, to be honest. He's actually very solid. But again, you do notice the pace being low in certain situations that you want to be able to defend. What's cool about this card, right, is the fact that he is left-footed, but he just needed a little bit more pace to really fit the meta of the game. Like if he was at a 95, people would talk about this card more often for sure. Like I said, he actually defends really well. Not a lot of people will use him though because the pace being really low for the meta of the game. Tomiyasu's card. So let's take a look at Tomiyasu's card. 68k for Tomiyasu. This card looks amazing. 100%. Especially with the dribbling stats. So the only thing that I could see being a nuisance on the card from time to time is going to be in composure. But this card on a shadow chemistry style, with the defensive stats that he has, 6'2" height, high and average plus body type, it's very important to boost the pace as much as possible. The only letdown of the card is potentially going to be in his physical attributes. But the thing is, though, guys, right, is that he is 6'2" with a high and average plus body type. So a card like this being rotated from that right back position into the right center back position for a 3 at the back would be phenomenal for a card like this. Why? Because his pace is going to work out with his dribbling. His defense is going to be in a very, very good area, but he also has the medium-high work rate with some pretty decent physical capabilities, right? So again, another very, very good card. He even has the center back variation as well. The problem is that the center back variation decreases the pace by quite a bit, right? It's a card that also has a decent work rate to use in the center back position. Low high is a little bit better to work with the pace being lower, but if that was the case, I would genuinely just use the right back card, get that pace, set him up in a 4 at the back formation, and then just rotate him into that center back area if possible, because again, pace in this game is hugely, hugely relevant. Christian Romero is actually an interesting one because this card I actually packed on my fodder account to be able to just play with my boy. Like, I packed him and I was like, oh, okay, we need a center back because we don't really have that many options. And yeah, he's actually a very solid card, but obviously when you're using him in game, you do notice the lack of sprint speed, right? What's important is that his acceleration is at a 96 to work with the low high work rates, which is very, very important. But there's a lot of situations when it comes to catching up with the player with sprint speed. Like, let's just say, for instance, if I was using Romero against Mbappe would dust him most of the times. But if it's like a 1v1 where I'm going like body to body against somebody, he still does a pretty solid job in those defensive areas because he actually has very good defensive animation. 6'1", high and average body type, work rates work really well. Defensive animations is great, but you notice the sprint speed from time to time up against those really, really fast players. There's Diob Tuanzebe. Tuanzebe, I tried out the other day. Very underrated card. But again, you got to work with this acceleration a little bit. But this card is actually very, very solid. I tried him out, I think it was like 3 weeks ago or something. I was doing a review on somebody's account and he was in the team. Guys, shadow chemistry style on this card. He is really, really good. He feels really nice across the pitch. Defensive animations are fantastic. But again, if you use that 3 at the back formation, you got to work with the acceleration a little bit. Dribbling, honestly, not that big of a deal. You notice it more when it comes to on the ball movement than you do for off the ball movement. But with on the ball movements, you don't move that much with these cards anyways. You want to try to get rid of the ball as quickly as possible. Regulon, also a very good selection as well. Nothing too crazy about the card, just a card that has been improved to be as good as possible for the meta of the game, because they have improved this card to a point where if you give him an anchor, the card is actually set up nicely. The thing that I noticed the most with him is physical presence, because of the fact that he has that lean body type with strength and aggression set up the way that it is. That is actually very, very noticeable on the card, right? So I do prefer to have someone that feels more physical in that area, even if it's someone like Tanganga, because I just want a stronger defensive presence in that area with the work rates and stuff. But, it's a card that, they've made usable for the meta of the game because the high work rates. 81 stamina is a little bit of a letdown, but like I said, guys, most of these cards you keep on stay back while attacking anyways. But again, it's a card that does stray away from the meta of the game a little bit, right? So we have the cheaper options, obviously, like Konate. Konate's actually pretty decent. I liked him as well. He definitely feels like he lacks in certain areas of the card, because when I give him an anchor chemistry style, again, it's a card that just feels like they have increased to a point where he's going to be as good as possible for the meta of the game. But it's a card that I feel like exists mostly to give you that link to Zaha if you actually ended up doing that SPC. Again, it's a card that can be used in the meta of the game, but you do notice the defensive stats being in the mid 80s in a lot of different situations, right? There's going to be like a few that you'll definitely notice it. Again, on an anchor chemistry style, it's a card that'll perform well because his dribbling stats works really well, considering the fact that he's 5'10". But because he has that lean body type with mid 80s for defensive stats, I feel like you do notice that for the defending in the game. And then the rest of this, I think, is the cheaper options. Yeah, cheaper options you go with is all like in the beginning of the game is usually like rare gold Joe Gomez. You can get the Romero card for 26k, like I just showed you guys. The man of the match, he's actually pretty solid to use in the beginning of the game too. I would say right back should definitely be Concello. Cancelo's a monster to use in the beginning. Left back is a little bit more complicated. Like I said, if you can afford these cheaper guys like Konate or Reguilon, that'd be ideal, but they're a little bit more on the expensive side, of course. Ricardo Pereira, doesn't he have a card? This card has a lot of potential, okay? The reason why he has potential is because take a look at the way that his pace is set up. If they give him any sort of special card and he's on a shadow chemistry style, with the high work rates, 4-star weak foot, and unique body type, he could also be very good too. I feel like the only thing they're going to notice on him is maybe the lack of physicality from time to time, right? But I think that's pretty much it. Konate is 48k, so let's take a look at the left backs from the Premier League. Left backs from the Premier League, there is Chiarantini, Luca Dean, Ben Chilwell, Konate, and the cheaper options, not a lot to work with. You could get Reguilon for like a cheaper price for 1.3 on a shadow chemistry style would be decent. But for the lower rated cards, Tierney would probably be the best one, or a Luke Shaw if you actually ended up doing him for free on the gameplay objectives. Luke Shaw probably the best option, I think, for the left back position. But yeah, guys, I was going to do most of the leagues, but this is already a 30-minute video, so we could probably just split it up if you guys are down for that. I'm going to see how well this video performs because people really enjoy these discussion videos of me talking about different types of cards and which cards I like the most for the meta of the game, and letting you know the goods and the bads of each individual card. So yeah, I'll post this one for today. We'll see how it does, and we'll take it from there. So yeah, hopefully you guys enjoy the video today. I'll catch you guys for the next one. Peace out, dudes. Love you guys.